Okay, parallel fifths. As you probably remember, last lesson we left in a cliffhanger. So the cliffhanger was what he considered the beginning, let's say, of parallel fifths, or at least he said, I will try to resolve this question in a simpler manner. So we're going to find out if this is simple or not. So we're going to start with parallel fifths, at least what he considers, yes, the story or why they're objectionable. And then we're going to see some examples of how to connect chords, triads, in 6 different examples. The concept of exchange. And finally, I'm going to ask you to do an assignment because the next topic is 7th chords. Yes, so next lesson we're going to start with 7th chords, which is the last topic of the 3rd chapter, which is very, very, very large. Yes, a very, very long topic. Very long chapter. Yes, and then the next one is minor mode. Yeah. Okay, so the evolution of polyphony can be envisioned as follows. The first push may have been given by someone's urge to participate in singing songs that were ordinarily sung by a single performer. When you're singing by a single performer, this is called what? How? What's the name?
Monophony.
Yes. That comes from where, Georgios?
The Greek language, of course.
Of course!
Naturally.
What's the root of the word? I love to do this.
Mono, single, and phony, voice. Single voice.
There you go, single voice. I mean, we have a great guy here. We have to use him. Fantastic. Two or more sang the same melody, were precisely the same type of voices to sing together, for example, just low male voices, then it is fairly obvious that only unison singing could be considered pure. That is, singing identical tones, the most perfect consonants. If women's voices were added and the melody lay neither very high nor very low, then the second possibility was manifest, singing in the second most perfect consonants in octaves, following the overtone series, by the way. But if the melody lay in such a range that it went too low for the high male and female voices or too high for the low voices, there was the need to find something else for these voices. As long as actual polyphony has not been invented, if one does not wish to record singing in octaves as already relatively polyphonic, which actually we don't, yeah? Nothing was left but to sing the same melody beginning on some other consonant tone. Since the unison and the octave had already been used, the ear had necessarily to choose the next most perfect consonants, the fifth, following the overtone series. Yes, you have the first overtone, the second is the octave, the third one in the ratio is the fifth. Thus began the organum at the fifth, or what is here the same thing, organum at the fourth. Well, I'm not going to explain the organum today, yes, just I'm saying that very, very extremely briefly because we're going to say it in cutting point. Actually, tomorrow, yes, tomorrow we're going to see the early polyphony, okay? We have a voice called the tenoris or the tenor, which means to hold. It was one voice and the one fifth up or one fifth down. Yes, and then they were all played in homophony. Yeah, they were playing the same thing, the same intervallic relationship. But I'm going to explain that tomorrow a little better. But they used fifths. Yes, that's the intervallic relationship, and the fourth as well. That the third was not employed for the same purpose until much later Until much later is more than Ars Nova. Yes, we're talking about here the beginning of polyphony, which is 1200, 1300. That indeed the third had not yet won recognition as consonants, and at a yet much later time is evidence in support of the hypothesis repeatedly mentioned in this book, namely that the distinction between dissonances and consonants is only gradual, one of degree. That dissonances are nothing else but more remote consonances whose analysis gives the ear more trouble on account of their remoteness. Now, before we carry on, yes, with this hypothesis that he based upon, his whole harmony treatise is based upon this hypothesis of the overtone series. And we go through that thoroughly, I believe. Now, when he says, because this is so important, that it deserves to be, reviewed, yes? When he says that the distinction between dissonances and consonants, there's a whole chapter about dissonances and consonants, if you remember, is only gradual, one of degree. Yeah, not of, remember that he said in the beginning, in that chapter, he says the dissonances are one of degree, but not of kind. Anyone remembers that? Anyone can explain that? The difference that the dissonances are one of the degree, but not of kind. Remember that? This is very important. Very, very, very important. They're talking about, yes, here it is.
I don't think I have the words for it. But it's very, the way he puts it, very strange, because in one hand it's subjective, the other hand is objective. What is dissonant and consonant?
His hypothesis, and I really like the word hypothesis, not theory, because it's a hypothesis. Yes, that's not been proven. Or at least at that point it was not proven. That the dissonance and the consonants belong to the same overtone series. So that's why it's the same degree, not kind. Because you say you're talking about kind, yes, different kinds of things. They're actually different things. So a dissonance of a tritone or a dissonance of a minor second, or let's say its inversion, which is a major seventh, is a difference of degree. So how far or near, let's say, is its relationship with the fundamental note or the fundamental overtone or the first overtone. That's it. But they belong to the same thing. They're not two different things. Consonants and dissonances are, two faces of the same coin, let's say. That is what he's referring to. Yeah. He does it very briefly because he wrote a whole chapter about that. But it doesn't hurt to review the topic. Yes. So he doesn't treat dissonances as something that it has to be opposed as a consonant. They are not opposed. That's his hypothesis. That is his view. Yes? Because it's kind of dissonance against consonants. Yes?
Difficult concept.
Pardon?
Difficult concept.
It's a difficult concept. From my perspective, from my point of view, what he tries to do is to take the antagonism between consonants and dissonances, because there is a view that consonants are good and dissonances are bad. This bipolarity, yes, he's against. Yeah. I must say that I coincide. Yes, I do agree with that. Yeah. I mean, nothing in music should be opposed to something else. Yes. So that's mainly it. Yeah. If you have doubts, please go to the lesson or review the chapter. Yes. Then we can discuss further. So That these are nothing else but more remote consonances whose analysis gives the ear more trouble on account of their remoteness, because they're far further away from the first overtone. But once analysis has made them more accessible, they will have the chance of becoming consonances, just like the closer overtones. Incidentally, that the unprepared dominant seventh chord gained quick acceptance is an additional argument for this viewpoint. Well, uh, he will talk about this further in the book, so we're not going to talk about this. It is thus evident that the ear, in the effort to imitate the natural euphony, was on the right track in following this particular development: unison, octave, fifth. And it is evident that the reason for singing in fifths was the same as that for singing in octaves. The sound pleased the ear. Moreover, we find here one of those peculiar coincidences that so often give the secrets of acoustics a Kabbalistic appearance, namely that singing in fifths or in fourths was completely in accord with the limitations of the human voice. For the tenor range lies on the average a fifth above the bass, the alto approximately a fourth to a fifth above the tenor, and the soprano likewise a fifth above the alto. Thus, we see that a generally artistic kind of solution was instinctively found here, two flies with one sword. So, the consequent evolution, yes? Now, before we carry on with that, do you remember the ranges of the voices?
So, yeah.
Page 35. Yes. Because,
And
well,
I mean the ranges and the good.
everything. Everything. You have the tenor and the soprano, which shares the same range, comfortable range from G to C. Yes, soprano will be G4 to C5, of course. No? And the tenor will be G3 to C4. You see. Then you have the alto, which is D4, G4. And then you have the bass, which is C3 and F3. Yeah, that's the most comfortable range. Then you have the proper range. For example, the soprano is D4 to A, yeah, 5. I mean, they're always like one or two notes more they can give, yes, but it's very risky. So as the alto, when you have the A3, yes, the C5, which I don't particularly like as an alto, but well, okay, can go. D and E with the alto, G, yes, G3 is the alto, and so on and so forth. Yes. Those ranges, please keep it in mind because it's one of the things of the topics of the assignment. Yeah. And also, if you connect with counterpoint, yes, this thing in fifth or fourth has to do with the modes and the hypomodes. Because if you remember, yes, you have the proto, Tritus, and Tetrardus, so the four modes with the hypomodes. And the hypomodes, I remember that the whole mode is a combination of a pentachord, right? And what? Remember? Pentachord is authentic, and the hypomode is which is an intro. Pardon?
Tetrachord.
There you go, and a tetrachord, which is basically it's a bunch of 5 notes, which is authentic mode, and then the hypomode, which is which interval? The fourth down. Or fifth up. It depends of if you are singing male or women. Because automatically women would sing another higher, so that fifth maybe has some connection. Yeah, automatically happens. I mean, even in theory, the hypo mode, hypo means below, the fourth down, if you're mixing male with women, yes, with female, well, that would be a fifth up from the finalis, yes, we call finalis, which today we call tonic. Right. so this, at least gives us something to think about. Now, carry we have the, sorry, just 1 minute. Okay, sorry. Now, there's a theory that Riemann, yes, he was a scholar, yes, he has several books written of harmony, of counterpoint, yes. He said something about the organum, yes, this, and then what Schonberg says is that he's basically backing up his reasoning, yes, in the book. I'm going to just read a really brief, chunk of it. It's actually organum was not yet real polyphony, this is Riemann says, but rather doubling at the fifth, the most natural step forward from the octave doubling of voices that had long been practiced. Which also is connected, is I find also in the lexicon and explanation of the favordón, which is a technique as well, of which I was totally ignorant. Yeah, the favordón would meant singing in 6 chords instead of fifths. Yes, that's a technique. That is indeed the next step in the evolution. And Riemann says also that soon afterward the true principle of polyphony was discovered, contraimotion. Yes, that was kind of the order. When they discovered contraimotion, everything exploded. Yes, because they found a true independence of the voices. Before it was all parallel. Yeah. Which there's a comment that I would love about Schonberg. Is I am a self-taught, and I can only think. So I find also lexicon he says, I was totally ignorant, the reader must forgive me, I am not scholar. I'm no scholar. I'm a self-taught, and I only can think. I love Schonberg, the subsequent evolution I envisage as follows. It was presumably soon after the third was recognized as a consonance that the possibility of contrary and oblique motion was discovered. Yes, this has connection with the book of Riemann. Yes. In addition to parallel unison, octaves, and fifths, that there arose the possibility for thirds, and probably soon thereafter, as I have said, the possibility also of contrary and oblique motion, hence an immense enrichment of means. Now it seems to me the following train of thought, only too firmly rooted in man's nature, gives psychological explanation of the question of forbidden fifths. Singing in octaves and fifths no doubt satisfied in a thoroughly natural way the taste of the time. It was in accord with the nature of sound and with the nature of man, thus it was beautiful. Nevertheless, the possibility of adding thirds, and then there's a comment about that, of course, because you always have to comment about those things, to the octaves and fifths, and of using contrary and oblique motion very likely produced a heady enthusiasm that came to hold everything of an earlier time to be bad, although it was merely outmoded. Such enthusiasm we can indeed observe in every great advance, not only in art. The enthusiast so completely forgets to be grateful for the preparatory work done by their predecessors that he hates that work and does not stop to think that the present advance would be impossible without it. Now, there's something that is kind of true in that moment. The Ars Nova, yes, for example, called the Ars Nova and the Ars Antiqua. Do you know anything about the difference between the Ars Nova and Ars Antiqua, or the vision that people had between them? Or why they were called Ars Nova and Ars Antiqua, very specific names? No? Well, what Ars Antiqua? Do you know anyone knows what does it mean? Antiqua, Ars Antiqua.
That was the old art.
Okay, yes, old art.
Literally,
Yes, literally.
Ars Nova.
Yes, literally old art. And Ars Nova is
New art.
new art. So there was in that time, especially in France, yes, there was Italy and France. Remember that we talked about a little bit about mensural notation, that the new way of notating, yes, mostly happened in Italy and France. In France, the head, let's say, yes, historically, the one that remained, yes, the system. So there was truly, yes, there was a difference, yes, of what they called new art and consequently old art, and there was a kind of feeling of to belittle, let's say, yes, the previous way, yes, and that's why he clings of that idea, yes, historically. If you read the books, yes, you should the people they had this well this thinking, yeah, of not revering, yes, the previous, yes, art. So now he says something about the thirds. Why not parallel thirds? Have you ever think about that? No one thinks about it. Here an objection was raised. Why did not the same fate prohibition also overtake the parallel thirds? Why not? Why? I mean, why this choice between no parallel thirds but yes no parallel fifths but yes parallel thirds? Because elsewhere I have cited this very case, parallel thirds, as an argument for my view. I left it out here only because it did not seem essential. Since it is brought up as an objection, I will examine it. The first, parallel fifths were indeed not justifiably thrown out of music. Their rejection was unjustified. This is very interesting what he's saying, because Jeff is saying, actually, I don't find anything, what he just said before, that really, is justifies, yeah, the prohibition of parallel fifths. Yes, the parallel octaves. Remember the parallel octaves. You see that he did a difference between parallel octaves and parallel fifths. The previous lesson we did parallel octaves. Why did he say the parallel octaves? Yes, are he said something very specific, actually.
They don't add anything. They take away the polyphony.
They're super.
Superfluous.
They're superfluous. Exactly. Exactly. You don't add anything by putting an octave. You're doing exactly the same thing. If C goes to D, remember, and a voice has to
Exactly.
go to one voice. Why are you going to do it in another voice? That's called doubling. That's another thing.
It will rest.
Exactly. That voice should rest. Fantastic. But he has another completely different view about the power of fifths. Now, Jesus, remember that we're just pondering about this. Yes?
But he says it is aesthetical. Then
Exactly. As an aesthetic, but he doesn't, he says, I haven't not found any acoustical reasons why. Yes? Remember that the whole book is based, that's why he comes back to this hypothesis of the overtones. Yes, and the consonants and the dissonance as a matter of degree and not a kind. So he based, I mean, he has an idea, he's doing a hypothesis. And he based his whole book about that. Yes? So everything that he relates and everything that he explains, all the common practice of classical music, he relates to that. And he says, I haven't found the reason why. Then you do whatever you want. But I haven't found it. Then maybe if you find it, that's great. Yeah. So he said first, parallel fifths were indeed not justifiably thrown out of music. The rejection was unjustified. Now, Now one cannot even maintain that the correct perception applied to an analogous case must lead necessarily to another correct judgment. But to demand that an illogical judgment absolutely must repeat itself in another illogical judgment, that indeed goes too far. Secondly, it was not even necessary to prohibit fifths, for they were just too artless when used as exclusive harmonization. Again, it was not even necessary to prohibit fifths, for they were just too artless when used as the exclusive harmonization. Kind of an idea of the thirds enriching, yes? And just by fifths is limiting because, again, this theory of overtones, if you have more overtones, the only way to go is up. So, same sound, octave, fifth, well, third is the next one. And then seventh and then the ninth and the, augmented 11th and so on and so forth. Thus, thirds did not have to be forbidden either, for they are good if not used exclusively. But as proof that where they were used exclusively, they were indeed regarded as a less significant method of voice leading. We may cite the expression Austersen, adding thirds, which is explicitly based on the idea of true actual voices. The thirds are only filler voices. However, in the double counterpoint sound effects that were added without contributing just by virtue of their addition anything special to voice leading. Now, finally, though parallel thirds used exclusively and parallel sixths are also felt to be artless, yes, even banal. Proof: folk music whose polyphony consists of scarcely more than these parallels. They are perhaps banal, but not impossible, and can on occasion be artistic. So what's it? I mean, basically, in a nutshell, what is he trying to say here? Yes, Yoli.
More or less, I get the impression that they are all octaves, fifths, and thirds. They don't add anything, but they prefer the thirds aesthetically because I'm not sure why exactly, but yeah, they went with that in the end.
They went with that in the end. It was preferred at some point.
Not acoustic reasons, but aesthetic reasons.
Aesthetic reason, yes, but also he says even the thirds that they were preferred, yes, if you just use that also is artless. This is some for music you have exactly, which in this in rules of harmony there's a rule you cannot do more than in counterpoint in counterpoint there's a rule that you cannot have that we're going to see, by the way, yes, in the future. You cannot have more than thirds, more than 3/3, or more than 3/6 in two voices. So actually, these part of the thirds have a connection with his idea because, okay, you cannot do two in a row, like part of fifths, but you cannot do more than three in a row. So in a way, don't repeat, enrich. Yes, if you have unison, octaves, fifths, and thirds, use them all in a way that you always, you're in a continuum, it's in a continued change. Yes. Okay, so final comment. I don't know if this is final comment, but what? How easily it could be forgotten that octaves and fifths were not in themselves bad, but on the contrary were in themselves good. That they have merely come to be considered outmoded, primitive, relatively artless. That there was no physical nor aesthetic reason, however, why they should not on occasion still be used. And if one considers that these rules in the form of those thou shalt not, yes, like a commandment, let's say, were spread abroad over centuries, then it becomes clear that the ear forgot the sound once found to be euphonious. And its use aroused antagonism, the word antagonism, yeah, because of the oddness the new always has about it. Actually, you felt that, Georgios. You were brainwashed.
Yeah.
Remember? They say they sound weird, they sound strange. Why they should sound strange? They don't sound strange. They're more euphonious than thirds. Logically, that was the path. Yes, they're closer to the overtone in the scale of the overtone. Yeah? I am saying that since progression in parallel octaves and fifths was not practiced for centuries, the ear was disposed to regard the occasional appearance of such connections as new. It's odd. Whereas the opposite is actually the case. They were old, only forgotten. And so it is no evidence against the view presented here whenever a musician says, sorry, yes, but I still notice these fifths. Yes, they call attention to themselves, and I think they sound unpleasant. The new does indeed always attract attention, and its sound is considered unpleasant, although it is not.
I predict that what my comment was.
Sorry, Georgios?
That's what I said last week, that I can still notice them. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. But there is I mean, what is interesting is that about this book, as you know, that I'm quite insisting on this, is that he questions everything. Everything.
One detail. He says that there's no physical or aesthetic reason. He means that it's not the bad harmonics or they don't sound bad aesthetically, but aesthetically they preferred them in the end. It was based on their aesthetic that they all sound good, but they went with a third. No?
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly. They went with a third, and then if you remember the chapter of the evolution, remember the chapter of the overtones. Yes, that you have monophony, organum, the fifth, then the third. Yes, the Renaissance. There's no Renaissance. And then the dominant sense of the Baroque. Yes, Romantic period, the 9th or the 11th. And then you have modern times in which you can use all the instruments that you want. I think that there's an idea that I think you can take it from. I mean, this is an assumption I'm making. It was it's kind of he wants to say that it was kind of the logical step. Yes, if in retrospectively you see from now, and you start from monophony in the year 1000, 100, whatever. Yes, or 1000. It was kind of the logical thing to do. To cut from octave to fifth to thirds. So he said, well, in that passage from fifth to third, instead of incorporating, they saw it, as a bad thing. They put like a moral. Yes, he argues that. Yes, into they produce like some sort of antagonism towards the old method. Yes, this is kind of the difference historically between the Antigua and the Nova. Yeah.
think now we ever used
Yeah.
the parallel sevenths. I don't think we ever did that. But
Bartok!
in jazz,
Bartok, yes, is it?
Bartok is Bartok. In jazz, however, they do use dominant sevenths only from dominant seven, dominant seven. Like no other chord, just dominant seven sometimes. But yeah.
Again. Wait. So I'm trying to understand.
They don't do parallel sevenths as per se, but
Yes.
they only use exclusively dominant seventh chords.
Yes.
The good seventh.
Yes.
So there was something there.
There was something there.
Yeah.
But then Bartok took that idea and he said, I will go further.
In which of Bartok?
Wait. The
Is it in Microcosmos?
no. It's either the concerto for orchestra or the music for strings, piano celesta. No, it's the concert for orchestra, the concerto. He starts um, he starts using and also using in using orchestration, using the timbra of the instruments. So he like starts with the like fifth, third with like kind of clarinet, yes. So he combines the interval, which is more euphonious, yes, towards the seventh, and the seventh he uses brasses. So not only he uses the intervals, yes, and it's euphony, euphony, and he goes further away from the overtones, but he goes further away from the timbra, yes, so from a more mellow, say, yeah, or sine wave related sound, let's say, to a more crisp, let's say, yeah, timbra. So it's very, and they pair. He does parallels continuously, yes, parallel sevenths, but he's using it more from a timbrical perspective, yes, like timbrical, the timbra, yes, the how they sound to amalgamate, let's say, two instruments, let's say, in very specific intervals, yes, and he plays with that. So then I will have to say where, in which movement, I can't remember now, yes, but it's in that is very interesting. All Bartol's in. He was a genius. So, and now the hidden octaves and fifths. They are explainable quite simply on grounds or orthodoxy. In order not to write any open fifths or octaves parallel movement into these perfect consonances was altogether avoided. Every attempt to deal differently with hidden parallels may be disregarded. Not merely because even the open parallels do not sound bad, but above all because this law has been nothing but a phantom of the textbooks, whereas in practice that is in the masterworks. It has been more often violated than observed. Yeah, it's a bomb.
Is that true?
Well, in truth, I mean, in truth, yes. And he has says repeatedly, he was not a scholar. The only thing that he had was music. He never read a textbook. I mean, he never. I mean, when he was studying music at a young age, he only studied from the music. He never. That's why I think that's why he has a unique view because it has no noise of a textbook. He has no morals, and that's why he's very insistent on that. Yes, of don't do this, do that. There's no morals. He just had music. That's why he said, I'm not a scholar. I'm a self-taught, and I only can think. And it's a very interesting phrase. Yes, he was very humble about that. Yeah, and that's why I believe that brought a unique view because actually he was a scholar, but he didn't put any morals. He didn't have any contamination, any pollution. That's why. How then should the pupil approach this problem of parallels? This is for you. I want to deal with this question rather thoroughly now because I intend later simply to refer back to this general discussion without going into its details every time. The question could be raised, if parallel fifths and octaves are not bad, why then should the pupil not be permitted to write them? My answer is this. He will be permitted to write them, but not until a later stage. The course of instruction should lead through the historical evolution. Should it not do so, should it give unsupported final results in the form of rules, then the putrefaction of these results uprooted from the evolutionary thought processes that produce them could lead to errors similar to those I have just exposed. And, as instruction can restrain further development through too strict formulation, so it could also obstruct the view back into the past and would make incomprehensible much of what was once vital. Well, this I'm not going to write there because this is, I am not about the new orthography. We really don't need that, okay? So that's why I'm just going to skip it. But to draw the conclusion that consonants are forbidden because they no longer appear in the works of this or that composer would lead to errors similar to those produced by our predecessors. Injunction against fifths, as far as I personally am concerned, but only because I am so long as I do not know better, I could easily say to the pupil, any simultaneous combination of sounds, any progression is possible. Nevertheless, even today, I feel that here too there are certain conditions on which my choice of this or that difference depends. Today we do not yet stand far away from the events of our time to be able to apprehend the loss behind them. So much that is an unessential crowds into the foreground of our awareness, covering up the essential. If I stand in the middle of the mountain pasture, I see every blade of grass, but that is worth nothing to me if perhaps I am looking for the path to the summit. If I stand at some distance, the blades of grass escape me, but I shall probably see the path. I hold the opinion that the path, even this path, will somehow connect logically with the stretch already traveled. I believe that in the harmony of us ultramodernists will ultimately be found the same laws that obtain the old harmony, only correspondingly broader, more generally conceived. Therefore, it seems to me of great importance that we conserve the knowledge and experience of the past. The path of the pupil. You. Thus, the pupil may as well follow the path taken by historical evolution. If he is learning harmony only out of an interest in a musical literature, if he only wishes to gain thereby a better understanding of the master works, then for him it does not really matter. For the short time he is himself creating musical patterns, whether he works out exercises in a modern or an unmodern style. What does matter, however, is that he be led to a correct attitude toward what is new. This purpose is accomplished by a course that, in its freedom from aesthetic preconceptions, reveals the mortality of many an eternal law, and gives thereby an unobstructed view of the evolution of the beautiful. That is, a view of how conceptions change, of how by virtue of these changes the new, which the ear of tradition prescribes, becomes the old, which is then pleasant to the ear, of how this new, or the tradition, in turns denies another one, still newer innovation, which is in turn temporarily prescribed access to the ear. If the pupil is a composer, you, however, he should patiently wait to see in which direction his development, his nature will take him. He should not wish to write things for which only full maturity can assume responsibility, things that artists have written almost against their will in obeying their compulsion of their development, in obeying this compulsion, but not out of the poorly disciplined wantonness of the one who, insecure in matters of form, writes arbitrarily. The pupil will therefore avoid open octaves on this chapter for this. And here comes the law. Therefore, avoid open octaves and fifths as long as he has need of instruction. So for now, yes, we don't do it. In a later stage, we will. But that will be combined with composition. But he may use them at such time as his inclination, taste, or an artistic understanding make it possible for him to take responsibility for them. And this is also my insistence. If you want to do something, please tell me why. Yes, and be responsible. Yes, remember the word. Responsible comes from responsibility, and responsibility is to have the ability to respond. Response, ability. To be response able, okay? That's, the word says it. So not because I didn't see it, not because sorry. No, I mean, if you want to do them, just please tell me why, and I will very happily, yes, give my blessing, yeah. Here in Octaves, he may write now as he chooses, with a few exceptions that will be discussed as the occasion warrants. Hidden fifths he may use at any time without restriction. Yes? Now, here comes the examples. Yeah. Now, in these examples that you're going to actually see them. This is part of your homework. I don't have time. Yes, we don't have time in 1 hour to see all the examples. So you're going to do it yourself. Yes, you're going to play all these examples, every single one of them, play it on the piano, see how they sound. And I will ask you how they sound, truly how they sound. I mean, try to see them or try to listen to them as you didn't know anything about music. They come from planet Mars. I don't know. Yes? So this is part of your homework. First assignment, to play every single example. Yes? Until the end of this topic. Yeah? Says the people will do well to work this way through everything in these tables in many keys as possible. Here for the first time, the difficult is voice leading, and the people will be best deal with them at once. Yeah. In some cases, he will encounter parallel octaves and fifths and must discover how to evade them. In some others, it will be necessary to dispense in part with the sustain of common notes or tones, because otherwise the superfluous doubling of the third will result as well. Now, he says something about the exchange, which is basically the connection of a triad with one of its own inversions and vice versa. Doesn't exchange. Yeah, so the harmonic rhythm doesn't change. It's just a change in, we call also a change in position in classical harmony. Yes? So this is just to bring a little bit of more a melodic, yes, enrichment of the bass. Yes? Or maybe a change in position to change the also the melody. Yes? So basically a work between the bass and the soprano. Yeah? So this page, which is 72, yes, play them all. And if you have time, I recommend to transpose in every key possible. Yeah, this is something that you should do. Yes, you should have it at the top of your fingers. Yes, to be able to transpose. Yes, voices. You say, okay, this is the, let's say you have this example B, yes, and you have, okay, tonic, yeah, tonic's major. They say, okay, tonic, not C major, tonic, yeah, third, fifth, yes, and you start naming the notes, yes, so there's the third root, fifth root, yes, and then in that order, bass, tenor, alto, soprano, say, okay, now in D flat, yeah. In D flat, what do we have? Well, F, D flat, yes, A flat, D flat. Automatically, because you have translated the function, not the notes. Yes? If you go to, I don't know, whatever, F sharp major, yes? They say, okay, sharp major, tonic, yes? So remember, you have the third the root, the fifth the root, yes? Okay, so A sharp, yeah? A sharp, the sharp, the G, C sharp, the F sharp. And you have bass, soprano, tenor, alto, da, 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 yes? And play it. Yeah? So this is an exercise. I'm not going to ask you to do it, in the lesson. You should do it yourself. Yeah? Because you lose fear of these dark places, yes, of the circle of fifths. which is the underground, yes, of the circle of fifths. D flat, C sharp major, yes, F sharp. Um, I don't know. Maybe scales that, well, they shouldn't be difficult, but the lower parts, yes, sometimes we avoid that, yeah, well, we shouldn't, yeah. And then after that, says the people will do well to work out every pair of chords twice, at least twice, only by doubling the octave of the sixth chord, once by doubling the fifth. This will always bring about different solutions and often new difficulties. The people should search for these out and often as possible find more than two solutions. For this almost every arrangement is something. Yes, Georgios.
Doubling the octave of the sixth chord, doubling the fifth, sixth chord.
Yes.
Don't follow.
So the people will do well around. Okay. So, well.
What is the fifth and sixth chord?
It will be good if you see all the examples before.
Does he mean the root and the fifth, or the? I don't follow. Why did he say octave? I'm not sure.
The octave that is wait, let's go back. Only by doubling the octave and the octave of the sixth chord.
Ah, sorry, I read or the
The sixth chord.
No. Once, but yeah, what does it mean?
Because if you have a sixth chord, what do you double? Not the third.
Yeah, but then once by doubling the fifth of the chord or the fifth from the sixth.
No. You have if you have a sixth chord. Remember that you don't double the third.
The third and the fifth.
No, the third. No, the
third of the chord.
The third of the chord. You don't double the third of the chord because it's in the bass.
Yes, but then
he's talking about the root.
Wait.
Edith, you have a headache.
With this my head is exploding.
Doubling the octave of the sixth chord.
Yes.
Which
Once
note?
by doubling the fifth.
What is the octave of the sixth chord?
He's talking about the root or the fifth of the chord.
The root. What did he say octave? As if the octave of the bass.
I don't know. Well, I don't know.
Okay.
You have a chord, a triad. Huh? In six, you have third on the bass, and then you have the root and the fifth. And then you don't double the third. We know that.
Ah.
Yes, you double either the root or the fifth.
And then he has the seventh degree below, but okay.
Yeah.
If he doubles the third, but okay.
Can you let it slide? It's okay for you. So my assignment. Listen, hear me out. Yes, you're going to do two. First of all, you have to go through all this that I told you. Yes, page 72. Okay. Play all the examples, see them, analyze them, transpose them. Okay. Secondly, you're going to do two exercises of 8 bars each with the same progression, whatever progression you want. With the seventh and the preparation, I mean, try to apply all the topics that we have seen, right? With 6 chords as well. Not 6/4 chords, it is. Please. 6/4 chords, no. Root position, fast inversion. That's it. Okay? Try it. Yes. Not in C major, not in G major, not in F major. I want at least 3 flats or sharps. Okay? From 3 flats or sharps, I'm happy. So 8 bars, yes, 1 progression, yes, and you're going to do another one with the same progression, but another completely beginning. You have the voices. The voicing has to be completely different. I mean, the way that the voices are distributed, completely different. I suggest start with a closed position, then start with an open position. I think that's the obvious thing. And you're going to, in one or the two, yes, in both, sorry, you're going to use at some point, at least in 2 bars, yes. Let's do the best. The first, yes, 2 bars of the first one. If you start in closed position, use just the most comfortable range, consciously, and you have to write to me comfortable. I use comfortable here and another. Yes, here, comfortable range. Yes. Because I want you to be conscious about what you're reading, what you're doing, not like random things. Yeah.
Which bar should I be comfortable?
If you start with a closed position, it's going to be at the beginning. If you start an open position, most probably it's going to be at the beginning of the second one, which is going to be extreme range. Yes, from extreme range. Yes. So the other one from the most comfortable to the extreme, and the extreme to the most comfortable. Consciously aware, okay, of what you're doing. Yeah.